If you want to learn more about effective management, head over to mattsingers.com and sign up for my free management training.
Welcome to the Mad Singers Management Podcast from madsingers.com, where entrepreneurs and business managers learn and share. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a review.
Hello, and welcome back to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Today I'm joined by Lydia, all the way from Birmingham. Welcome, Lydia.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, and I'm super excited to talk with you. I talked with a common friend a few weeks ago, and she made an introduction, and I'm super excited to get to know you better with this podcast. So,
thank you. Yeah. I'm excited too. She had very good things to say.
That's good. So, Lydia, there's people around the world who don't yet know who you are, believe it or not. Would you mind giving people a little bit of an introduction and tell them how you ended up where you are right now?
Sure. So I currently own 2 cafes based in the Midlands, UK, with a real focus on quality of produce, the values behind that, specialty coffee, brunch, lunch, everything homemade. As we speak, I am in the process of building site number 3, which is going to turn into a wholesale bakery, which is going to see us move into the B2B market as well, rather than just customers walking through the door. I've been doing that since July 2017. Before that, my background is varied, like super varied. I am proudly wear the guise of failed musician. That's all I was going to do, just tunnel vision. I was going to be a singer. I was going to live on the road, and I lived in the back of a van quite a lot of my life and things like that. But then that didn't work out, came crashing down, and ended up doing a bunch of different things. One of them quite a corporate setting, recruitment, which really didn't suit me. And then ended up 25 years old, which I know is still super young, but just going back into hospitality, because I'd been in and out of it a lot through my life, as a lot of people have been in and out of it. Just ended up part-time washing up for somebody, 25 years old, just trying to find myself again and like what it was that I wanted to do. And very much had this eureka moment of, I'm built for this. Like, this is what I'm good at. I'm built for this. And then there was just a journey of learning as many skills as I could in order to then open my own business and start this thing, which has become really quite special to quite a lot of people. And that's kind of the whistle-stop tour of how I've got to today now, on the cusp of owning 3 businesses.
Perfect. That sounds like a roller coaster indeed. So, yeah,
it was an emotional roller coaster, especially the coming out of the music industry thing and really coming crashing down and being really quite lost, I guess, because that brought me all the things people talk about: find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life, all those sort of cliches that you hear. And I had found my passion and loved it, but then suddenly not having that and not having the dynamic, like, family vibe around me of being around musicians, and suddenly being like, there never was a plan B, I'd never had a plan B. And so the journey to finding something that I could feel fulfilled by again, there were some dark times in there, I'm not going to lie.
Yep. And it's, I've been extremely lucky. I found my calling when I was only 18. So
wow.
I know lots of people spend many years of their life trying to figure out what to do. But some of us are fortunately have been fortunate. But that's life. So tell me a little bit about what's hospitality like. I mean, you're running cafes and so on. That sounds, is it monotone? Is it very different on a daily basis, or?
Hell no, it's completely different. And I think that this is where having like a natural ability for this kind of work is something that becomes really important for me to recognize in others as well, because and I'm sure this is the same with loads of industries, the customer is the unknown entity that you cannot control, and they could throw anything at you at any moment. But imagine that 300 times a day, and imagine throwing hunger into the mix as well, because we all joke, you get hangry and you're not the best version of yourself. But so we have to build a team of people who are really good at thinking on their feet And it is asking a lot of, something that is considered relatively unskilled, by the way. And that's something that I feel very passionate about, is that it's not unskilled. It requires a lot of people skills and a lot of creativity and a lot of resilience. So to answer your question, hospitality, yeah, it's super varied and requires the best version of yourself all of the time if you want to be really good at it, because there are a lot of people that will just use it as a stopgap and do an okay job, and something that we spend a lot of time in the recruitment stages trying to sort of weed out the people who maybe share our values a little bit more. But it also requires an incredible team, and then that team is something that, I mean, hospitality right now is still, like many people, really recovering from the pandemic and the effects that had on us. I can't put it any more eloquently than you have a business that relies on people coming into your space in their troves. We used to ram them in. We used to be like, yeah, come on in, sit on each other's laps. Like we're all friends here. To suddenly doors closed. Nope, we can't have people in here. So having the kind of team that will take you through that are invested in that as well, and have the skills to be able to bounce back and get up and motivate themselves every day. In a nutshell, yeah, hospitality's, it's always been a bit crazy, and now it's like super crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a horrific thing, right? Because reality is like running a business when you suddenly have all these government regulations, right? Like a lot of the time I could see many restaurants and so on where, they could not actually put enough customers into their shop to actually pay the wages for the people doing the work. I'm like, when you're better off having your business shut than having it open, something is definitely not going well. All right.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like maybe on a financial, like from a financial figures point of view, but also you've got to consider the future, right? And you've got to consider customers always vote with their feet. I always say that. And if you were the business that was there for them when nobody else was, you are going to buy their loyalty for the rest of their lives, or the rest of the time they're in that geographical area, and we just realized early on, this isn't going to be a flash in the pan thing. You could either bury your head in the sand, take the government grants and just wait for it to pass, right? Wait for it all to blow over. Or you can dig deep and say, no, we've got the stuff that people want, food, drink, coffee, social interaction brings joy to people's lives. That's one of the big honors of what we do, the big privileges of what we do. We just need to figure out how to get it to them now. That's all it is. It's just a brand new challenge.
Yeah, I love the way you look at it. So how do you get the right people into a place like that?
So it's very easy to reactively recruit in what we do, because you've got a 40-hour hole in your rota and you physically need people to have the shop open and to be serving people. So it'd be really, really easy to just grab the first person that walks by. But that always backfires. I can't even give you one example of a time where that worked out. So what we've done is created a series of questions during interview, and you could say actually that I maybe learned this from my time in corporate recruitment, so maybe I shouldn't diss it so much, but we really considered our values. What's important to us as a business? What are the core, like, non-negotiables? And then the questions become about trying to find out if the person sat in front of you shares any of those values. They don't need to share all of them. We're all different. And that's the beautiful thing about any industry, is all the different people that you get in. But trying to explore and dig down into what motivates somebody, what gets them going, what gets them out of bed in the morning, because it's a lot of self-awareness to know what motivates you, right? That, it's quite a lot to ask maybe of a relatively young person, because our industry is very young. But we can help find that out through a series of clever questions and then help them nurture it. But like, for example, I will ask people things like, okay, I give them two scenarios. You can get out of bed, you can go to work, you can do an okay job, and you can go home. Or you can go to work, do a really fucking good job, and go home. Why do you want to do the latter? And I almost want them to not be able to explain it. I almost want them to be like, well, why wouldn't you? It's just innate. It's like, I have to do it. I can't help myself. I just care too much. And, it's sad to think that they can't say money, because they can. Of course, it's a reality. You have to pay the bills, you have to go to work, but any job will just pay your rent, and you are in the fortunate position of being able to pick where you want to work. So why here? And this is it as well. Like, we always expect people to know some stuff about us. Like, if you turn up to the interview and I can say, what do you know about us? And they don't know, I'll just call the interview there. I'm like, what? Why are you here? Like, we could be horrible. We could be horrible people who don't care about what we do. And we're very, very visual on social media. It wouldn't take much to find out a bit about us. So yeah, nailing down those core values as a business, and then asking intuitive questions to find out if those people share those values.
I love that a lot. I think one of the core things I always say is, it's not about if people want a job, but if it's about do they want this job, like your job, right? Because I think fundamentally, again, there's many jobs out there, and reality is actually exactly as you just said, right? Like, people can show up, people can do what they want. In the end of the day, my experience in life so far is that no one wakes up in the morning and say, I want to do a bad job.
Right.
However, as leaders and as managers, it's our responsibility, and this is a horrible word, or people feel it sounds horrible, but it's in principle our role to manipulate people to do the best they can within the time they're at work, right? Because reality is, it's in our best interest that they do the best job possible. Now, in most cases, it's also in their best interest, because if you do a great job, you're more likely to have better opportunities in the future. You're more likely to learn skills and so on. So it's in principle in both parties' interest, because again, if someone's sitting on their phone playing games 8 hours a day, or if they're doing a smashing good job, like anything else being equal, they will always win by doing a good job, right? Like, in life in general, they will always be better off if they actually learn to put their feet to the ground and really do solid work, right?
Well, 100%. It's like people say that they might see a successful person and say they're lucky, right? But actually, no, is it lucky, or is it just insane work ethic? Because you'll get super lucky the harder you work, right? And interesting, you said that about it benefits everybody on the whole, because our second stage of recruitment, it's worth me saying, is that no matter what the level of the job, whether it's entry level pot wash or whether it's management, if you've passed the manager interview set part portion, you then go and do a shift with the team, and the team get the ultimate sign off, because our dynamic is so important to us. This culture that we've built that drove us through things like the pandemic and kept us all working towards one goal. That's the culture that did that. So you can't just impress me. You can't just impress my business partner or any manager. The whole team have to sign off. And that's a really important part of keeping the dynamic really sound.
Yeah, I love that. I think definitely more companies should generally be doing that. It's a lot easier when it's a physical business.
Right.
So obviously, when people are sort of remote or working from home, it's a lot harder to really to get your staff to know the person well. But when I had office based, we would often do a lot of that as well, where basically bring in someone, and if we would interview them, go through that whole process, and if we feel they were a good fit, we would then get them to sit and spend some time with the team, and just let the team get a feel for the person, and then exactly as you say, like in the end of the day, let them have a vote and say what they think. Again, it doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It doesn't mean you don't hire someone occasionally that doesn't work out. But again, it's a numbers game. The more eyes you have looking at something, the more likely you are to get a great outcome, right?
Totally. I mean, I guess the interview is for some people, they might consider it like a pressured environment. They're either on their best behavior or they're extremely nervous as well. So you're ultimately putting them in a situation that's a lot more natural to the role they're actually going to function.
Yeah. And one thing we actually love doing is actually rather first, instead of doing an interview type thing, for that reason particularly, what we really like doing is actually get one of the team that we're considering for the role to actually phone them up and just have a chat with them. Like sometimes it's a little bit interviewing, but it's more like have a chat about the job. You know, this is what we do, this is what it's all about, and really talk to the person as a human being, right? Because often they seem to be a lot less scared when it comes to that, and very often we find that they often do significantly better in an interview. And often what's actually most important for us is that they often value it a lot more. They value the job and they value the opportunity a lot more, because it is a little bit of a different recruitment process, right?
Culture first. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, we try and do that because in the end of the day, I look at recruitment as sales, all right? In the sense that recruitment, number one thing is you need to get a lot of candidates in principle, because the more candidates you have, the more likely you are to find a great one, all right? So you definitely want to have a pile of candidates, but then it's also really important to have some valuable assessments, right? Not just say, oh, you know, this person seems nice or whatever. Like so many small business owners just literally hire whoever walks through the door, all right? Because they're busy, they're stressed, they just want someone in the role, and they're like, oh yeah, let's hire someone, and that's, yeah, that rarely works out.
Never.
One of the key things for me is, and I learned this from the big corporate world as well, but generally is that the more difficult it is to get a job, the more people appreciate it. And more importantly, the less likely they are to actually leave that job.
Well, because they feel maybe lucky to have got it. I know, I get what you mean. We've tried to set up things that make us a little bit different in that, first of all, there's like a job subscription service you can sign up to. So if we're not hiring right now, it's like we're always theoretically hiring. So we get a lot of emails like, oh, are you hiring? Here's my CV. And I will default there's like a template that I can just send back, and it'll say, we're not hiring right now, but please sign up to this mailing list and you'll be the first to know when we are hiring. And 9 times out of 10, they don't do it. And I'm like, well, great. Thank you for making that decision for me, because you weren't willing to just go that extra little bit further. And also it creates this idea of like, it's a bit of exclusivity, like, oh man, it's hard to get in there. And you know, this industry, I mean, industry standard in the UK is you get 13 and a half weeks out of somebody. So you're like hiring and training somebody new every 13 and a half weeks. Not only is that tiring, but it's expensive. We've got something like an 18-month staff retention, and I really do believe it's because of things like that. Like, so you've had to sign up to the subscription thing, and oh my god, you've got a notification saying they are hiring, and then when you get there, you know, you meet me and I've asked you some interesting questions, and then you go to the trial shift and the team are really cool and like happy to be there. So yeah, I get what you're saying, man. Like, it's make it more of like an exclusive club as well. Like, you're super lucky to get in here.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So when you have so much turnover generally, do you have people that stick around for a significant period of time generally?
Totally. I mean, my day one hire was a guy called George, who was going to be head chef. Because I know front of house, I know coffee, and I know people and managing people, but I can't cook, and 50% of the business is about food. So I met this guy who took that side just as seriously, and he got the values and he got what I was trying to build. And he's now my business partner. You know, like 4.5 years down the line, it's now a given. Food is your thing, everything else is my thing, and we work beautifully together in that manner. So he's now been with me 4.5 years. We've got people, I mean, inordinate, like out of proportion with the rest of hospitality, people that have been here years. And I might sound a bit full of myself, but it's the culture. It's the culture that we've built. People want to be here. It's fun. We reward loyalty as well. You know, we're building a company based around the people that we meet, rather than trying to find people to fulfill our dreams, right? Because right now we're opening a wholesale bakery. If you told me 3 years ago we were going to open a wholesale bakery, I'd be like, what? That wasn't part of the original plan. But actually, we've met 2 or 3 people along the way who have these incredible skills based around bread, pastry, and people were coming to us saying, hey, can we buy your stuff to sell in our shop? And that's where we were like, hey, there's an opportunity here. So like I said, we've built this based around the people that have stuck around. But like you mentioned earlier, that there is also great pride in being able to recognize, actually, no, we made a mistake here, and letting somebody go and not like beating a dead horse. Because from a personal characteristic point of view, I don't like giving up on people. I like to feel that I can change people and help people. And I'm working on that myself, but also trying to turn it into a strength. You know, finding that line between, can I help you? I've tried to help you, versus actually, no, we just don't align. This isn't meant to be.
Yeah, it's definitely in many companies, people keep the wrong staff around too long. And the problem is, when you're a small business, like, you don't need many not bad people, that's the wrong word, but you don't need many people who are not delivering for it to really hurt your business, right? Because as a small business, like, you need the productivity out of all the resources you have.
Well, it's the bad apple analogy rather than like bad people, right? But so we're 27 people now. And we most recently, you know, you have one potentially bad apple. And, you know, when you've got 10 people in on the day, it, like you say, it doesn't take much for all of a sudden the vibe to change, the culture to start taking a downward spiral, for you to realize that when you take culture as seriously as we do, you have to react, and regardless of the consequences, you know, whether it's like, oh, but we need this person, like, nah, we'll either go short staffed, or I'll jump back in. I'm not that operational anymore, because I'm all about expanding the business and making it bigger. But culture, you can outsource so much, right? But you can't outsource culture. So I will put some stuff to the side or send it to somebody else to do, and be like, nah, fine, I'll come back and I'll be operational again, because this is too important for me to prioritize bookkeeping or whatever it is that was on my agenda that day.
Totally. That makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like a challenging environment. And I'll say, even training up, I mean, with the amount of staff you have now, you must be training up like new leaders and managers as well. Like, can you find people, or do you find people regularly that have management experience, or do you train them up from scratch, so to say?
So occasionally you'll get somebody that has management experience if we are specifically hiring for a manager, but more times than not, I mentioned it earlier, we are a young industry. You know, it just is what it is. And therefore, more often than not, I'm meeting people that don't have much management experience, if any, or like I said, we're recognizing potential in people and we're nurturing that. And we're saying, hey, have you ever thought about management? Because you're good at this, by the way, like, you're naturally good at this. So how about taking the next step and taking this seriously as a career, which enough people, you know, not enough people are getting excited about that, if you ask me. So a lot of my role has been about considering how to teach people how to manage people. And, you know, we're a very dynamic team, a very dynamic group of people. And that means that you've got some people like myself, you know, I said I was a failed musician, naturally extroverted, quite happy to be the center of attention. There are some pluses to that, but also the minuses are that I'm always trying to be the loudest voice in the room, and I'm trying to teach myself to listen more and like be more considerate. But then you'll meet somebody who actually is maybe a bit more introverted, and they're worried about having to be more assertive. And I'm trying to teach them that actually their superpower is, you're already a fantastic listener. You're already thinking all the time. Harnessing that power is super powerful for you. So I am in the luxurious position of being able to cater training to specific people. And something I'm working on right now is sort of extrapolating that to something bigger, and being able to say, okay, we have training for different types of people based on your sort of natural characteristics. There's something that I focus on a lot, and this isn't even just specific to personality type or characteristics, is honesty as a leader and vulnerability. Because the thing I've realized in the past couple of years, that the thing new managers are most afraid of is that they won't have the answers, and that somebody will come to them with something, and they need to be this all-seeing, all-understanding management god that immediately knows what to do. And it is very, very daunting if you've never done that before. And something I do with people is, I call it the best boss exercise, where I ask them to think about the best leader, best team leader, boss, manager, whatever you want to call them, and just tell me 3 characteristics that they had. And 100% success rate, by the way. They'll throw some great things at you, like charismatic, hardworking, resilient, tenacious. Nobody ever says always right, like perfect. Nobody ever says these things, these expectations that you're about to hold yourself to as a new manager. So that whole exercise is to make them realize that your best boss, best manager ever, they were human too. They were humble, they apologized, and teaching people to say, or have the ability to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to this right now, but you deserve my 100% attention, you deserve a response to this. So I want to go away and think about it, or I want to talk to Lydia, or I want to talk to George, my business partner, get some advice. I want to think about it, and set a date to come back to it so they know that you take it seriously.
So are you indicating that you're not perfect?
Oh, it pains me to say it. It pains me to say it. Absolutely not. And actually, my biggest weakness is something that I have worked really, really hard to turn into a positive, which is that I told you I'm a failed performer, which means that I come with an ego, I come with a chip on my shoulder. And that could be seen as a real weakness. But actually, I'm turning it into, I'm embracing it. I'm like, if I say I'm going to do something, I have to do it, because I'm worried that people will think I'm rubbish if I don't. They'll think that I'm not somebody that's true to my word. But actually, let's harness that. I said I was going to do something, so let's do it. Let's figure out how to facilitate it and make it a thing. And again, there's some humility that comes with that in terms of maybe realizing that what you said out loud wasn't a fantastic idea. But then helping new managers assess their faults and turning those into their biggest weapons.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, with all my management training and focus, like one of the most critical pieces of it is around finding, helping people understand their natural strength and weakness, because most people don't know. And it's actually a lot easier than you think when you start looking at behavior. But then really help them to understand how can they utilize their strength, because again, like as humans, we naturally try and focus on the stuff we're not good at, and we're always like, oh, I'm not good at this, I should improve that. But actually, in most cases, you're so much better off focusing on the things you are good at, because that is what you are actually good at, and then working with other people who have different strength than you and getting them to do more of the stuff that they're great at. And that's, for me, like building teams like that and really giving people the opportunity to be who they are the best makes a huge difference.
It takes a lot of self-awareness though, right? Like you said, like being able to explore that. And what I encourage new managers especially to do is ask themselves a series of questions at the end of the day. Like for me, some of them sound super cheesy, but I'll ask myself things like, am I proud of how I conducted myself today? Would I work with me? And the answer is not always yes. Of course, it's not. Like I just said, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But then what you can do is dig a little deeper into those things. Okay, what did I do today that I wasn't so proud of? What could I have done differently? And then if you've thought it through and you've thought about how you'll attack it differently next time, it also gives you the ability to let it go and forgive yourself for the things that you didn't do perfectly.
Interesting. I like that. I like that mindset. Well, Lydia, fantastic conversation. That was a lot of fun. Any sort of resources for people or anything you'd recommend for people who are either running a company already, a small business, or who are looking to maybe grow themselves from a personal development standpoint?
Sure. I mean, so from a culture point of view, a book that made a lot of difference to me was called The Culture Code. Something I it really hit hard with me. I think the resources that I rely on a lot are very specific to hospitality, but there's a podcast called Restaurant Unstoppable by Eric Cacciatore. He's American based, but that really gave me an insight into how other new young hospitality owners were dealing with the challenges faced. There's a new UK based one called the Cafe Hustle, which is really useful. And then from a personal development point of view, journaling, man. I've listened to your podcast. I know a lot of people talk about this, but writing stuff down to explore more and come back to is a very underrated thing.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Excellent. Well, Lydia, thank you very much for joining me today. If people are eager to get hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
Okay. I mean, both of the existing businesses are all over social media: Warwick Street Kitchen, Saint Kitchen. I'm also on social media, but drop me an email, lydia@warwickstreetkitchen.com or lydia@saintkitchen.com. And I'd love to chat. Like, I really could talk about hospitality and team leading all day. So please get in touch. That'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you very much again. It was awesome meeting you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Excellent. And to the audience, thank you very much for holding on all the way to the end.
Thank you for listening to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Please leave a review. It means the world to us. You can also learn more about management at madsingers.com.